Okay, let's get into the panel now. I'm joined by Gemma Tognini here on the desk with me and Caroline De Russo in the wonderful city of Perth. Thanks both for joining us. Let's get straight into industrial relations and what this means for the country. This is massive upheaval. And Gemma, one of the things that a lot of business leaders have started to point out is that if you want this, right to disconnect from work, if that's in law, as it is now, then workplaces are going to be a lot less flexible about how you can go home at half-time to look after the kids or to pick up the kids. Flexibility's got to go both ways, doesn't it?
This is such a retrograde step, and I should say to my team who are watching, we're good. But, you've got one-way traffic, and employers are quite rightly going to say, if you want to clock off at 5 or 5:30 or whatever time you're finishing, that's fine, but no longer can you bugger off at 3 o'clock to pick up your kids and log on later. It's got to be quid pro quo, because otherwise businesses won't be profitable, and if they're not profitable, they can't hire people and they will close down. And as much as Canberra would like the whole world to be employed by the public sector, like the People's Republic of Victoria is, it's not sustainable. It's like you've got a bunch of people developing policy saying, how can we show the greater world that none of us have got any experience in the real economy? And those figures that have come out today about, I believe it was Tony Burke's office, and the amount of them who are not actually working in the office, is it any wonder that this government is coming out with what I call lowest common denominator policy development? They're assuming that every boss in Australia is an unboundaried rat.
Yep, and they're looking for ways to get governments and unions more involved in private businesses.
Let me just point out one more thing. What everybody knows, unions represent less than 10% of the Australian workforce. Why is the tail wagging the dog here?
And Gemma, the thing is, as Gemma just referred to, 70%, it's revealed today, of Tony Burke's own department, and we believe about 70% of Treasury as well, federal public servants, are working from home. I mean, these people want to work from home and never get a phone call from the boss, and we pay.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I work from home, I run my own business, but it's a little bit different. But I will put on a load of washing at 10 a.m. and I will go run an errand at 2 p.m. and then you work whatever hours you need to work to get the job done. But if there's not going to be, and Gemma made the point perfectly, if there's not going to be that flexibility after hours, well, then you can't expect the flexibility within hours. And frankly, this just looks like a government that has run out of ideas. It's got nothing to do. It doesn't know what to do. So it's trying to create a solution for a problem which doesn't actually exist. And I don't know how government can fix an issue like this, which this here is done by people having open dialogue within the businesses that they work with, that they have good relationships with their boss, and the bosses have good relationships with their staff. That is actually what we should be trying to foster, instead of trying to pit the two against each other and then pretending that, we're here for the worker.
I want to move on to other issues, but just quickly, an answer from each of you. I'll start with you, Carrie. But it's not about fixing a problem here. There is no problem. Isn't it just the government doing what its union masters dictate?
It totally is. And even this morning, Laura Jays had Chandler Mather on, and he couldn't give her an example of where this is a real issue, or where it actually occurs. And they're trying to find and make up some contrived potential issue, which never actually happens in normal everyday workplaces, to try and justify why this is needed.
We need to find, Gemma, one example of someone's life being destroyed by a work call from the boss at 10 o'clock at night.
It just doesn't happen. And I think I want people to know who are watching this that when your workplaces turn around and say, I'm sorry, there's no more flexibility available to you during work hours to do those things that you've previously been doing, look in one place. Federal Labor, Tony Burke, retrograde 1970s, policy that has no place in a modern workforce.
And those unions. Now, let's go to Queensland and talk about the youth crime crisis there. They've actually got the police commissioner to address Cabinet today. It's an unusual move. It's going to be a good move, I would have thought, Caro, but it's just talking. There's got to be some action come out of it.
Totally. And then the question is, where's the police minister Why is the Commissioner coming in to be doing the job that they should be doing? You know, the entire time that I have been commentating for Sky, Chris, we have talked about the crime issue in Queensland and particularly up in the north. This is not new. It is just now become a political issue for the Labor government, so they have to pretend to do something. They're talking about ankle bracelets like it's policing. It's essentially the policing equivalent of giving your kids an iPad and hoping they grow up, you know, totally fine without any involvement from the parents. Ankle bracelets is not policing. They're going to have to come up with something better than that, but I just don't feel like the Queensland population are buying it.
Yeah, Cara makes a good point. I mean, if the police commissioner was doing the right job, the cabinet wouldn't need a briefing from Katarina Carroll. This stuff's just got to happen automatically. We don't have all the departmental heads turning in to brief cabinet on health or education or whatever. It's supposed to be the ministers doing this.
Well, this is systemic, right? And this is a problem that successive Queensland premiers, i.e. Anastasia Palaszczuk, obviously no longer premier, but she's not accountable to a problem that her successive years in government created. They have cuddled children who, yes, we can acknowledge that kids who come from difficult backgrounds tend to offend. That's not in dispute. But just saying give them a cuddle and send them back on the street, that is achieving and has achieved nothing. Queensland, I was about to say Victoria, but you could substitute one for the other, quite frankly, when it comes to youth crime. But Queensland voters have got every right to be demanding change. And if they vote for this... If they vote, this chap, then they're on their own as far as I'm concerned. You get what you pay for.
Just on the giggling Premier of Queensland, the idea that he's calling out from help for the other states during a cyclone, which of course he should be able to do, but at the same time not paying his $100 million bill to New South Wales for help in Queensland?
They're the family member that you just want to cut loose, frankly. Like, they're the freeloaders who come and stay and they eat your food and they pee in your pool and they do all that sort of stuff, and then they come back. They don't want to contribute. They're absolutely... This government is hubris, Chris, and it's the result of being in power for too long.
Indeed it is. Now, I want to go to you, Caro, our Royal Report expert, and tell us about King Charles III. We heard from Prince William last week talking about the illness his dad's dealing with. Now we've seen King Charles III out and about. Also, interestingly today, word from the Governor-General that so far there are no plans to delay the King's visit to Australia, planned to happen later this year. So you never know, he might still turn up.
Yeah, he might still turn up, which I know you're really excited about, Chris. You've got it marked in your diary and you're ready to go with your flags and all that. I know you're excited and I don't want to disappoint you. Look, we know that he is having treatment. We know that he will get very good treatment. We know that he has a form of cancer. We don't know what the form of cancer is. We don't know the severity of it. He came out yesterday and made a statement, which I think a lot of people were really happy to hear. Obviously, Prince William has made a statement this week, as has Camilla, the Queen, but I think people were happy to hear from Charles. He went to church. Look, he is out and about. He's obviously not taking on his normal workload that he would be. Other royals are filling that gap. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see that they're due to go to Canada, I think in May, well before Australia. So it'll be interesting to see whether those plans remain depending on his treatment. But Chris, he will hopefully be here in October just for you, my friend.
Let's hope he bounces back and does come out here. I'll have you know that I once wrote a speech for a state premier when the Queen was visiting, and the palace had to approve it. There was even a gentle little joke in there, which was allowed to stay, and it put a smile on the Queen's face. So there you go. I do respect the royals, even if I'm not an arch royalist, an arch monarchist, as many others.
I'm going to buy you a Union Jack hat.
Oh no, it's the Union Jack I'm not into.